Tina DuVernay, Adult Services Manager for Gwinnett County Public Library. And tonight, thank you all so much for coming. We're so glad to have you. We have Tanya Sam as our moderator for the evening. She is a tech-savvy businesswoman who co-founded Built X Women, a business accelerator for female entrepreneurs. She co-directs Ascend 2020, a technology startup and small business pre-accelerator for minority and female founders. Additionally, Tanya serves on the board of directors for Kate's Club, a nonprofit organization that empowers children who have experienced the death of a parent or sibling. Tanya is the founder of Tanya Time Book Club. And she lives in Atlanta. And we have Kennedy Ryan, who is the New York Times bestseller, who happens to write for women from all walks of life, empowering them and placing them firmly at the center of each story and in charge of their own destinies. She is a wife to her lifetime lover, and mother to an extraordinary son. She has always leveraged her journalism background to write for charity and nonprofit organizations, but enjoys writing to raise autism awareness most. She has appeared on Headline News, Montel Williams, NPR, and other media outlets as an advocate for families living with autism. Her latest book, This Could Be Us, is the second book in her Skyland series. Let's give them a round of applause.
Okay, so before you came out here, yes, I was talking amongst ourselves, and I just want to give Kennedy an idea. How many people have read This Could Be Us? Okay, and listen, just, raise your hand. How many people have not read it yet? But they've read, it's fine, because you're here for a reason. So.
And we'll still try to keep spoiler-free for those.
Yes. But we are going to make you fall in love with this book. I know so many of you guys have already fallen in love with this book and all your other books. But I want to start off, Kennedy, because I feel like, and I told these lovely people out here, that you were like the Beyonce of books for me. Prolific writer. She's written over 22 books. I look up to you. You are living your dream. You are teaching us and giving us so much. But I want to start off by, a lot of us know you because they follow you on social media. But tell us a little bit about yourself. Pretend we're having a little girlfriend chat. And tell us the quick Kennedy Ryan synopsis in case you don't know her.
Yeah, I'm a writer. My background is journalism. A lot of times people are like, I've been writing all my life. I started writing for my city newspaper when I was 17 years old. So I've been writing professionally a really long time, but I thought that I would be covering war-torn countries, and now I'm writing romance. So there's that. I didn't know that I would be writing fiction. I only started writing fiction 10 years ago. And she mentioned my husband, Sam, who is with me tonight. Where are you, Sam? Sam? There he is. Always.
Stand up, Sam. So
he's so amazing.
I already told them how he is your real life Judah.
He is my real life Sam.
There you go.
But
even better.
But a lot of people ask, where did I get so much of Judah from This Could Be Us? And, we have been navigating, when you talk about who am I am a mom to an amazing autistic guy. They call him the gentle giant. He's 6'3" now. My husband's 6'5", so he gets it honest. They call him the gentle giant, and I love the autism community. I've engaged with the autism community. The autism auction, my auction, Lift for Autism, which raised $157,000 last year for autism, kicks off on Monday, and we have Tia Williams, we have everybody's books in there, all of them, Anna Wong, everybody.
Where do we find it?
It's liftforautism.com.
Okay.
Yeah, so we raised $157,000 last year, and I really want to beat it this year. But people bid, and from there, I call it a bookish bloodbath. Really, so much of our journey is in This Could Be Us because my son is 23. We've been married 28 years, and so much of watching my husband be a parent to our son influenced and informed how I wrote Judah in This Could Be Us. So there's that. I'm a reader first. I started reading romance literally in the 7th grade. I'm a preacher's kid, so my mom was scandalized that I was reading romance. And she forbade it, and I rebelled, and I snuck romance novels in my clothes, in my purse, hidden under my mattress, stuffed in my closet. I've always loved romance, and she didn't even know until I was like in my 30s.
Does she read them now?
No. My mom started reading one of my books, and she was like, "Why they gotta cuss?" I was like, "Ma, just close the book." There's a lot more than cursing that's gonna happen. She has all of them. And she reads a little bit, yeah. My husband reads all of my books, which is amazing. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so that's me. I mean, I'm a romance writer. I love readers. I think that, we're, some of you may not know, we're developing, the Skyline series has been optioned for television, which is so exciting. A little more about me.
That's what we're here for.
That's what we're here for. So it's been optioned by Universal, and it's going to be on Peacock. And so it's in development, and John Legend is one of the producers, and Malcolm D. Lee, who does the Best Man franchise, and Deborah Martin Chase, and I'm an executive producer. And so one of the producers was like, I have to, because we're doing stuff behind the scenes. We're going to have updates and announcements coming soon. But we're doing all kinds of things behind the scenes. And one of the producers was talking to me. She was like, I've got a question for you. And I was like, okay. And I'm thinking she's going to be like, it's casting. We're talking about writers. And she goes, how do you spend so much time on social media?
Oh, yeah.
I was like, what? That's your question? But I set aside time to engage with readers because I wouldn't be here without readers, and I love people. And for me, I always say that my first metric of success is impact. And there's no better way for me to know how my stories are impacting readers than to talk to readers and to hear from them. And they're in my DMs and they're telling me everything, and so I'm here for you guys. I don't write for you. I don't. I write from conviction. I write exactly what I think I'm supposed to write. But I want to know how it engages with your life. And so it's important to me.
Well, even though you don't write for us, and I
do.
understand that as
Yes.
from an author's perspective,
Yes.
we feel it.
Yes.
And when
I should say,
Yes.
when I say I don't write for you, meaning I don't write looking at what's popular or what the market is, or, oh my gosh, dark romance is so big. Ooh, Step Brothers. Ooh, Brother's Best Friend. Ooh, Small Town. That's not how I come to story. I come to story from and there's nothing wrong with any of that. But for me, story is about creative conviction. And when I say I don't write for readers, meaning readers will come in my DMs, okay, this is what you need to write. And I'm like, that's so nice. That's so nice. I'm never gonna write that. But one of the things that's most important to me is that people see themselves in my work. And so when I say I'm not writing for readers, what I mean is I'm not writing based on what, is popular or what it seems like the market is demanding. But I deliberately center marginalized women, and I want us to see ourselves in these pages. There's something special for me about, this is a moment that I love, is when there is something that's been in your heart, you may not have ever been able to put words to it or articulate it, and all of a sudden you open a book written by someone you've never met and you don't know, and somehow they have articulated what was in your heart. They have put words to the emotion that was roiling around inside of you, and somehow because you read that book, you understand more about yourself, and it either takes you to healing or it takes you to interrogating something about yourself. Whatever it is, that's the moment I live for,
Okay, that was this book for me. Over and over and over and over again. And I mean, I just read it and I always I literally, there's parts that I clap it. I clap it. You know, there's other times when you get so emotional, you want to throw at this, but this was this book, and I feel like I sent so many people, my book club read it, my friends, my this, and they would text me at all hours of the day. Oh my gosh, this chapter, make sure you ask about this. But I want to start off by give us a little synopsis for those who haven't read it about what inspired you to write this book and what is really at the heart of this book.
Yeah, this is, well, first of all, I wrote Before I Let Go. And that's which is book 1 of the Skyland series. And that's where Soledad first appears.
Yep.
You know, so we first meet her there. And I started dropping little hints that, you know, her husband, oh, can we curse?
Yeah.
Okay, can we curse?
Sorry, Pete.
Okay.
We said we could curse. We had a little preamble chat.
We have a pact?
And we can talk about some smutty stuff.
Okay, so we have a profanity pact.
Yeah.
And we have a little smutty pact. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll still keep it tame, but this is the best way to talk about it. I knew that her husband won't shit. That I did know, you know, and people are like, where did you get the inspiration for Edward? I'm like, men.
Now, I just have to ask, who has met an Edward? Who has met an Edward? Because
Yes,
I
of
feel
course.
like I've met an Edward. Like, he is
Yes.
not an enigma,
Yes.
unfortunately.
Yes, and you know, it's so, I want to keep this spoiler free, but there is a moment where she realizes how bad he is, and she's having a conversation with her doctor. So if you've read the book, you know what I'm talking about, right? And when I first wrote that, one of my beta readers was like, oh my gosh, I've never read that in a romance novel. I'm not sure that you should put that in there. And I was like, believe me, women who have been in this situation understand the violation of that. They understand.
The front row can't see, but as you move back, people are like,
Yes. Yeah, and so he was easy because we as women so often end up in situations, in relationships where we're taken advantage of, you know, and as moms, as wives, and just to get into the synopsis a little bit, Soledad is intentionally a stay-at-home mom, and she loves it. And when I talk about I want people to see themselves, I always have someone in mind. And when I wrote This Could Be Us, you know, this is a story about a woman reclaiming her power. It's about a woman who has this perfect life seemingly that is upended, and she has to restart. And so she has 3 children. She has a husband who's trash, but he's not always trash. You know, when she marries him, it's not like there's years where she's like, oh, he's treating me horribly. It's like, I call it a slow leak of power.
slow burn.
It's a slow leak of power where over years, by inches, she's losing parts of herself, and he's taking things that she doesn't realize that he's taking, and he may not even realize that he's taking. She thinks they're in a partnership, and he doesn't see it that way. He thinks that she works for him, you know? And so it comes to a point where a lot happens, but I see Soledad as someone who, and I really was thinking about stay-at-home moms, and I was thinking about single women. So that's who I was thinking about when I wrote this book. And one thing that I love about Soledad is she talks about how, and I think it's in the 30s, in South Carolina. I'm kind of nerdy when it comes to research and history, but in the 30s in, I think, South Carolina.
Oh, this was,
yes.
Y'all know what she's talking
about.
You know, spoiler this.
I'll just say
this was really pivotal.
So in South Carolina, it was the first time, I don't have the exact date in my mind right now, but it was war. One of the wars was going on, I think World War I. Or maybe it was, no, let me think, World War I. And soldiers, black men were going off, you know, to fight. And so they were soldiers, and they were sending money home to their families. And so for the first time, black women were getting money sent home, and they didn't have to work. And so they were like, oh, this is nice. I'll stay home. I'll take care of my family. And the white women in those communities all of a sudden didn't have domestics, didn't have people to look after their children. And they were in an uproar because they were like, we need people to do these things. And literally in South Carolina, they passed an ordinance that black women had to work, that they could not be stay at home.
Because they needed
Yes,
their
because
domestics.
their labor was needed. And so there was literally an ordinance that said you cannot stay at home. And so early on, Soledad hears that story, and it creates something in her where she's like, this is a privilege. This is something we fought for, that Black women would be able to stay and create a home and raise amazing children. This is honorable.
It is honorable.
You know? And I really wanted stay-at-home moms to feel vocationally validated. I wanted stay-at-home moms to know that their work matters. And at one point in the book, Soledad says something like, so you pay somebody to wash your clothes, a dry cleaner, you pay somebody like an Uber driver, you pay somebody as a personal chef, you pay somebody to do all these things, and it's work, but when I do it, it's not work. Right? So I really wanted stay-at-home moms to see themselves. And I wanted single women, you know, at some point, I think you know by now that at some point the marriage falls apart and she starts a journey about self-love and self-actualization and self-understanding that for me, it really was a little bit of a risk. And the reason I say that is because it's a romance novel, you know? And so it's a romance novel, and people are used to like a certain thing happening in romance novels. And that thing is not that the heroine will be dating herself for half the book.
But
you know?
isn't that is one of my favorite lines?
Yes.
Where she talks about, she's like, imagine I am the love of my
own life.
And everything else comes down from that. And I mean, I think I underlined that like 3 times, but that's a romance novel.
Yes.
That's a romance. It's a different type of romance novel, right? Because we always want the happy ending and the bow and this.
And there is a guy, there is a guy, you know, there's a love interest.
We know Judah.
Yes, but I see a lot of people say, for me, the biggest romance in this book is Soledad with herself, and I would agree. I mean, there's definitely the love of a parent for their child, you know, her kids, Judah, the way he loves his children, who are both autistic, and I think we could talk a little bit about that. And then friendship, of course, the dynamic with Hendrix and Soledad and Yasmin, that's a love story. One of my favorite lines from This Could Be Us is there aren't enough sonnets for friendship.
Oh my God.
She's like, that one.
Do you underline? Because those are some of my favorite lines. And I wanted to talk about that. I want to stay on Soledad a little bit because there's so much to unpack with her. She's just such a beautiful, dynamic, sexy woman. And as you watch her sort of come into herself, I feel like as a wife, as a mother, as a daughter, like she is all facets of women, and we see little pieces of her in all this, as a friend. And then becoming her own self-sustaining woman as she navigates, I got this. And it's interesting that you brought up social media at the beginning, because this is the thing about this book, it's so real, it's so timely, it's so today, and so now she's got to keep a roof on, keep the lights on, make sure her daughters have a place, the life that they want, right? And so many times, I feel like, especially for women's fiction, the woman crumbles, and we've seen that in other books. It's hard, right? But this was a little bit different. She took all of her passions and all of her loves and turned it into a way that she could provide for herself and show her daughters how she did that. But what was interesting, because you talked about your own ability to be a marketer, to use social marketing and use these tools, how did you sort of play that into Soledad's Phoenix Rising, as I call it?
You know, I really wanted to honor her desire to be home. And there is a scenario where she could go outside of the home and find work. But because that was something that was such a force for her, because at one time she's having a conversation with Hendrix and Yasmin, and one of them makes a comment about like, you're so talented and educated and all this, you could do anything, you know, and she's like, yeah, I could do anything, and I'm doing exactly what I want. You know, because so many times we think of ambition as one thing. You know, and Soledad is like, my ambition is to create a safe space for my children, to raise 3 amazing humans and send them out to the world to make a difference. That is my job, and I love it. And I really wanted to honor that for her, even as she had to start rebuilding. And so obviously, like, the culture we live in now is a completely different, there are so many opportunities there that didn't exist before. And you see people all the time. I mean, I'm constantly like commenting commenting shop on, you know, on Instagram, commenting shop and getting links sent to me, and I'm on everybody's LTK, and I'm like, give it to me, and they're like, we get a commission for this, I don't care, just give me the shoe, you know? So it's like, you know, that's the way that people are making a living, and I just kind of used that to be able, so that Soledad could still stay home. And she's such a domestic goddess. It's so funny because I have people tagging me now, like on Instagram or whatever, and they're like, I put a denture, because she has this cat where you put a denture in your sheets and you wash it and it makes them so white. And they're like, oh my gosh, my sheets have never been so white. And I'm like, it's Soledad.
She's amazing. All the little things, and so that actually made like the potpourris, her viral vinaigrette. Like, what's the recipe?
Yes, you know this is so many people ask me for the viral vinaigrette recipe that's in This Could Be Us, and it's actually first introduced in Before I Let Go. So there are recipes at the end of Before I Let Go, and the viral vinaigrette is at the end of Before I Let Go, because that's when we first find that. That's when we first see that recipe.
All right. Wait, Gina, are you telling us we have 5 minutes until Q&A? Oh my gosh. Okay, hold on a second. We love Soledad.
Yes.
We're going to touch really quickly on the women in the sisterhood, because you talked about there should be more sonnets for sisterhood.
Yes.
So this book is also set in Atlanta. Hey, Atlanta. Hello. But I want to talk a bit about the sisterhood and then also about the men in this book. So like we've got to get to a little bit of both, but you know, just Hendrix, Yasmin, I know there's a third book coming.
Yes, in the spring. Yes, I'm writing Hendrix now.
Say it again. Did you not
I'm
hear
writing Hendrix now. Yes, and her book will be out next year. And then if you're a real person, Score, which is the follow-up to Real, will come out next fall.
Store. Is it called Store?
It's Score. Yeah, there's
okay.
a book called Real, and then Score is the next one. I always get that question.
But just again, speaking about, and this is the theme that comes through, I think, all the Skyland books, it's these powerful women that are empowered through them. And we talked about a little bit before, just about how Hendrix showing up and being like, I got you.
Yes.
And how they're baking the bread and they're doing all these things. Why is that so important to you? And
Yeah, I think when we talk about healing, when we talk about growing, when we talk about, you know, all self-actualizing, all of that happens best in the context of community. And it's so important for us to have real relationships. And I was telling somebody, I don't know who I was telling, I say it all the time, I see relationships as concentric. And what I mean by concentric is you have these big circle and then a smaller circle and then a smaller circle, and then you have the tiniest circle. And that tiniest circle for me is only like 3-4 people. And people are like, do you have a lot of friends? And I'm like, I do, but that tight circle, I don't need 12 people in that tight circle. I just need 2 or 3 or 4, and that is about being known. You know, that is about somebody knowing really who you are. When you try to hide it, when you try to cover it up, when you try to, I'm fine it, and they're like, no, you ain't, you know, and they surround you and they know how to be there for you. And people ask where the inspiration for that came from. It really came from me seeing my mom have those kinds of friendships. When I was growing up, I remember one of her good friends was diagnosed with cancer, which in the book, you know, there's a warning for that. But one of my mom's really good friends was diagnosed with cancer while she was pregnant. And they gave her a very, very low chance of survival. And I just remember my mom being there with her through everything and cooking food for her kids and being at the hospital. When somebody would come in, they were talking negatively. This is my mom. She would go, you need to leave. Love it. You know, she would be like, we are only entertaining positive vibes. We are only entertaining faith. You need to leave. She was incredibly protective of her friends, and she was vitally involved. And she was that way with everyone. And she did survive. Her friend did survive. Yes. And that's one of my godbrothers now. So that's what I saw growing up. And I saw the benefit of it. And I wanted to replicate that in this particular series.
We talked a little bit about that in the pre-party, just how it was so nice and how we learn from that, how to show up for other people, how to show up for our girlfriends, whether it's, you know, coming to clean someone's house. So I love that that came from your mom. So I'm going to take us to the other side, to the men in this book that we love so much. And then we love to hate.
Yes.
Right? And you told, thank you actually for giving us that sort of dichotomy of like really beautiful, thoughtful, steadfast Black men
Yes.
with positive relationships, because I'm talking about Judah Cross in the book. But also just the way they're navigating his children,
Yes.
his ex-wife, and co-parenting, and what a contrast to Edward
Yes.
and Trash Amber.
Yes.
But talk a little bit about those characters, and you mentioned Sam as well in your book, but talk a little bit about that for us.
Yeah, I think people often ask, like, how do you come up with these great heroes, these great guys? And I always tell them the way I usually approach it is I build the woman first. If it's MF, but I build the first partner first. In this case, I build the woman first. And with all of her fallacies, her strengths, her weaknesses, her vulnerabilities, she's powerful, she's whatever, I build her. And then I build the man who deserves her.
Oh!
That's how I create the heroes. Is first I make the woman, and
Guys, write that down on your vision board. Seriously. You are the woman that you are, and Kennedy Ryan just told you to build it on your vision board.
yeah, I mean, that is how
Free
I do
therapy.
it. If you have read any of my other books, like let's say you've read a book like Long Shot. When you look at Iris, August is exactly what she needs. She needs patience. She needs long suffering. She needs someone who would love her through very difficult times. She needs someone who will take his time with her and who would, this is very important, because she's lost so much, put her first. So that's what he is. And then if you read something like The Kingmaker, it's a very alpha hero, it's an alpha heroine too. And then you read someone like Judah, if you read across my catalog, you will see that the man is fit to the woman, And so that's how I come up with the hero, is first I'm coming up with the woman. And I always tell people, even my alpha heroes are feminists. I only write men who are heroes who are feminist. And all that means, people are like, okay, wait a minute, so a man is a feminist. A feminist, the definition of a feminist is just someone who believes that men and women are equal. That's all, and who acts like it. And so that's what I'm writing. I write men who are feminists.
What's really interesting to me, people will DM me stories when I talk about the books, and people will say, I gave this book to my partner, or I'm reading it alongside of him. And I love that.
I do too.
And it's funny, my sister said to me, because her husband said, I want to know how you think, and I want to know what you and your girlfriends are talking about. And I thought that was exactly to your point. That was a Judah move, right?
Yes.
When he picked up the book
absolutely.
and he was like,
Yes.
I'm reading what you're reading.
Yeah, she's like, oh, you're reading this? Because once you read it, All About Love by Bell Hooks is such a big part of this story. And I know we had 5 minutes, but I'm going to tell you guys about a goosebump moment that I had. I always talk about how I don't see writing as just a vocation, but I see it as a calling. And I believe that if I'm listening and that if I'm writing the stories that I'm supposed to be writing when I am, they're going to find people, and it's going to be transformative, healing, challenging, whatever it is, right? And so when I am writing, I feel like I'm in partnership with something that's bigger than me. And that's how I feel like these stories kind of dig into people's hearts and find those secret places. And so I always get these mile markers or some sign that I'm on the right track. So I had named Soledad in Before I Let Go, right? I had never read All About Love. And so I had named Soledad 2 years before. And so I knew I was going to read All About Love in preparation. If I'm writing, I'm reading. I'm always reading books to write. And so I was rereading Zora Neale Hurston's Their Eyes Were Watching God, which is one of my favorite books of all time. And if you know Janie's journey, a lot of parallels. So I reread that. And then I was reading All About Love for the first time by Bell Hooks. And I'm on an airplane. And I'm like, okay, I'm writing Soledad's story. And I come to this line in the book that says, Soledad Hermosa. And I have goosebumps now. You see her?
Yes.
And I was like, wait a minute, that can't be what I just read. Because I had named Soledad 2 years ago. And so when I looked and I was like, that says Soledad Hermosa in Bell Hook's book that I had never read before. And I had already decided that I was going to incorporate that into her journey. And I just started sobbing on the airplane because I'm like, I'm on the right track, you know? So,
I love that. I just believe in alignment and all those little signs, like little just ghost whispers that the universe brings to you. So on the contrast, Edward. So Edward. And he's such he's not an interesting character. He is trash, but he is who he is.
Yeah.
But what's so interesting to me is writing about these men now that are the opposite. And I feel like social media will have everybody talking about narcissism and all these things. Which I feel like years ago we weren't really talking about.
Right.
So we weren't really picking up those red flags that, you know, and it's such a different perspective and story now. So what was it like writing in Edward as this sort of, I mean, I thought he was the evil villain.
Yeah, I think that he is, you know, in a lot of ways, and I think there are aspects of his character that are exaggerated for the sake of story and entertainment. But I think at his core, he's just like a lot of men. You know, and what I mean by that is not that they're villains, but so often, and it's just culture. You know, when you are in a relationship with a woman, and it's just patriarchy, it's just misogyny. You know, sometimes you take that woman for granted. Sometimes we're both working, but we're the ones who are cooking. We're the ones women do so much more. You know, in our in genderized roles, we're doing so much more. And I think it's just an exaggeration of what a lot of women experience, which is being taken advantage of, which is their dreams being subjugated to someone else's, which is them setting their aspirations aside or setting their ambitions aside or having to balance a whole bunch of stuff at home that isn't being shared. You know, I think that it's just an exaggeration of what a lot of women experience, and sometimes they don't even realize they do, but Edward is an exaggeration of that, you know? And I always have sensitivity readers, and for this book, one of my sensitivity readers was actually an FBI lawyer who specializes in embezzlement.
Really?
Yes, fascinating. So she really helped me a lot with that aspect of his story. I had autistic parents and actually autistic people who were sensitivity readers. I hired an autistic editor. And then of course I had my Puerto Rican sisters, you know, who came in and beta read and sensitivity read. So it was just really a village of different representations of the book coming together to make it what it is, what I want it to be.
I want to jump before we open up for questions just to talk about what it was like, because in the very beginning of the book, there's a disclaimer saying, you know, you've been trying and wanting to write about your own personal experiences with having an autistic child, and how this is the first. So 20 years later, it took some time.
Yeah.
So why now, and what was that experience like? I personally loved it, and I appreciated it, and I learned so much from it. So I thank you for that. Even having a nursing background, it's like the lived experience, and when you see it in print, and when you see what everyday life is like, and then also watching Judah and his wife parent these beautiful boys in such a beautiful and tender way. How did it work, putting it all out on the page?
You know,
for us?
I had and I say this in the author's note, part of the reason I had never really written about it was because I didn't want to do harm. You know, it's like everybody has their ideas about what autism is, and the language, I don't say this, you say this, and it can become divisive at points. Like, we believe it this way and we believe it this way. And I really I didn't want to engage with that in writing, because I was like, I don't want it to be about that. And I also don't want to inadvertently harm a community that I love so much and that has embraced my family so much. And so I just kind of set it aside, and I just was like, I'm just gonna live my life. And I was running a foundation that I started for 11 years. I'm gonna run my foundation, I'm gonna run my auction, I'm gonna raise money. And I was fine with like my gift of writing not intersecting with that. But one of the big parts, when I talk about fitting a man to the woman, one of the biggest parts of Soledad's personality and character is that she is so devoted to her children. And I was like, I want to write a man who is also so devoted to his children. And when I thought about that, I was like, autistic parents are some of the most devoted, sacrificing people I have ever seen. And I looked at our journey, mine and my husband's, and I looked at the kind of father that he was and he had to grow into be. And I was like, it's time. You know, I'm going to write a guy who matches her devotion, and I am going to mine my experience as a parent and the community that I love to put that on paper. And my son is, we don't really use this language as much, but he's more on the severe end, if that's the way people think about it. He requires 24-hour, around-the-clock care. He's nonverbal with some language, but he'll probably be with us all of our life, you know, so that's one experience, but that's not the only experience. And I wanted to make sure that I wrote something that encompassed as much of the breadth of the spectrum of autism as I could. And I thought, what better way than twins who have identical DNA, you know, who grow up exactly in the same circumstances, raised by the same parents, but their autism looks very different. And so that's how I leveraged that. And like I said, I hired an autistic editor, interviewed autistic parents, used sensitivity readers, actually autistic people as sensitivity readers, in shaping that representation to what I needed it to be.
Last thing that I'm going to say that ties us in, and Gina, I know we're ready for questions.
Gina's like,
I'm going to
now.
say one thing.
She's like, 5 minutes ago.
Put your hands up for questions. But just to that point, as I bring in the kids, because one thing I think that was very beautiful, and the children in this book are incredible. You know, you've got Soledad's kids, you have her friends' kids, you have Adam and Aaron, and just also how they interact. So how you very thoughtfully wove in, you know, how the children were able to stand up, and I don't want to give spoilers, but I think that was also a very beautiful point. Well, I'm going to stop now so we can get to questions, because I know we have tons. Gina is going, if you guys just put your hands up. I know you have questions.
Oh,
okay, there you go.
Well, but first, can we give them a round of applause?
We could be here all night.
Literally.
We could be here all
So
night.
many questions we didn't even get to.
Oh,
We're just
like-
chatting.
Some pretty good questions here, so I'm just going to read out a few, because some of them were spicy. So I'm just going to read
I'll
out
go for the spicy ones first.
a couple. So this one, your name is Yvonne. Is there Yvonne here? This may or may not be a question, because I barely have your name right. However, the question is, it says, my question is, if you could have dinner with any of your characters, who would it be and why?
Oh gosh.
Soledad's cooking.
Soledad's cooking. We'll just say that so I can take her off the list. I think this might surprise a lot of people. I think it would be Kimba from Queen Move. She's an overlooked character, but she elects presidents, she elects governors, she is, you know, fighting voter suppression, you know, she's out here saving democracy. And I love her so much. She's a powerful woman, but at the same time, she's vulnerable. And I think that's one thing that I'm always trying to balance with my characters, because we, especially as Black women, the myth of our strength, not that we're not strong and resilient, but just the way sometimes we're not allowed to break or bend. I think Kimba is such a balance of a very powerful woman who, you know, there's a scene in that book where Ezra's like, you know, I know that you have all this, you have this armor, but I want you to know that when you're with me, you can take it off. You know, like you can take that armor off. And I love their dynamic, specifically in Queen Move, and I think I would have dinner with Kimba from Queen Move.
Okay, good. I have another question. Black men in therapy, that is the title of the question. I have the title. Okay. Was it easier to write Josiah or Judah? That's part one. Well, actually, there's a statement. It says Judah's character comes in already having been to therapy and has found ways to cope that works for him, whereas Josiah does as the story progresses.
Yeah, I don't think it's a matter of which is easier to write, because both, for me, required a certain level of like research and understanding. I think that writing Josiah's character, first of all, I can't remember if I said this or not, but I think about not just like when I release a book, I'm not thinking of just like I'm releasing a book. I say that I deploy books and I send books on a mission. And so when I was writing Josiah, it's a very different mission. When I was writing Before I Let Go, it's a very different mission than This Could Be Us. And one of the big missions with Before I Let Go is normalizing therapy for marginalized communities, you know? And so for me, so many people are like, Josiah should have been in therapy from the beginning. And I'm like, I know, I get it. But that wouldn't actually model growth, you know? And for me, what I really wanted to put on paper with Josiah is what a lot of women have, which is a Black man who is resistant to therapy.
Yes.
And I really wanted to model for them seeing a partner who is so deeply entrenched in resisting therapy in the beginning, and over the course of the story comes to understand this is essential for me to heal. And not only is it essential for me to heal, it will transform my relationships, specifically with the woman I lost and still love. And so for me, that was the point. It was from Black men. I really wanted Black men to see that, and I wanted women to see that. I just really wanted people to see it. But in our community, in marginalized communities, it's even more, you know, it's even more stigmatized. And when you get to Black men, it's the most stigmatized. And for therapy, for, you know, for Black women and brown women and women, depression, you know, I really wanted to deal with that. I've been very open about my own battle with depression. And so much of my journey with depression is woven into that story of finding a therapist and getting on antidepressants. That is my life. You know, that's what I have had to navigate. And I wanted to normalize that in the story. And so many people, after they read Before I Let Go, or in my DMs, as soon as I finished, I called my insurance to see if they paid for therapy. I've been avoiding therapy. We got into marriage counseling. I gave it to my husband. I was like, read this, you know? So that is really, when you talk about difference, each book is on a different mission. You know, and so for the mission for Before I Let Go has so much to do with healing and therapy and mental health. And the mission for This Could Be Us was very different. So there was less emphasis. And, you know, Judah was already therapized because I didn't need him not to be. You know, I needed, for what Soledad needed, he needed to have already done that work.
Ooh, love that.
Corey, yeah, okay. So we have a question, and I'm sorry, it just, handwriting, but I'm doing my best. Okay, so Josiah.
She's like, you need a translator? I'm right here.
Right. Josiah and Judah. Actually, this is going to be a question for you, really. Because I really like it.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I know my handwriting was crazy. I love you so much, so I'll get to talk to yours. My question is, canon and real, my husband in my head, Maxim from Keyacre, Josiah, Judah, and Skynet, they all meet at a bar. Who do you think would get along the most? What do they talk about? Would they get along? And then with their, like, you know, parts of their partners, what would they talk about? Would they get along?
Okay. Is this question have 12 parts? Okay, I might not answer that exactly, but what I would say is that Cannon will probably be off in a corner by himself, doodling ideas about his next movie. You know, he's not very social, and he's pretty obsessed with his work. I think that Maxim would probably only stay for a few minutes and then he'd go off to work. You know, he's like, okay, I gotta go save the planet. You know, who you said Cannon? Did you say Maxim?
Yeah.
You Cannon, Maxim, who?
Judah and Josiah.
I think Judah and Josiah would sit there in awkward silence for a while because Judah's like, I'm so socially awkward, but I'm okay with it. And he'd just sit there for a while. And then I think Josiah would eventually draw him out, probably by talking about their women. You know? Yeah, so I think that's what would happen.
Very good. The next one is, have you ever made a fellow cake? I tried twice with no success. And I think I'm a pretty good maker.
No, I don't cook. All the time people are like, oh my gosh, the recipes, and you must be such a great cook. I'm like, I really am not. No, I have not baked limoncello cake, but I love seeing so many people tag me on, that's the most done recipe from Before I Let Go is the limoncello cake. It's Aunt Bird's limoncello cake. Everybody makes it, and I love it.
Okay, this one is from Ashley Bevel. What is the most exciting moment you've experienced on this tour?
Oh, gosh. I mean, we have to be making the New York Times list. You know, I think it was significant for me, but I really felt like it was significant for Black romance and for Black romance authors. We had not had a Black romance or a Black romance author on the New York Times list in 3 years. And the last one was Tia Williams, 7 Days in June. And I could do a whole talk about why that is, you know, and the systemic barriers and navigating writing Black romance in a white supremacist culture, like all of that, and TikTok, and, you know, algorithmic bias, and, you know, all the things that contribute to what that list is comprised of right now, which is essentially white women. And in romance, it's a lot of white romance authors, and a lot of them are my friends, so it's not to denigrate that, but it's very white. You know, there's very little brown, there's very little Black, and when it is, it's lit thick. It's, you know, it's literary fiction, but never like something that honors the romance between a Black man and a Black woman. And so I really, I wanted it, you know, and for me, I don't like to want things because I'm like, if it doesn't happen, I'll be disappointed. And at first I was very secretly wanting it. And then I told my team, I want this, you know, and I said, I want it not just for me. I want Black women to see this can still happen for us. I want readers to know that there is a space that we have been excluded from that honors Black romance, and that I am going to barrel back into that space. You know, I really wanted that. And I'll tell you a little secret. So the New York Times doesn't come out the way like the USA Today list. Like, it is always like a week and a half ahead. So when you look at the date, it's not the date. It's like ahead. And so when I pulled it up, I had an event with Tia Williams that night, because Tia and I went on tour together. We did 2 stops together, and we're very good friends. And so I was, you know, about to go be with Tia, and of course she's the last person to do it. And so I looked at the New York Times list, and I was with my husband, and I'm looking at it, and I was like, oh my God, I didn't make it. And I was like, okay, it's fine. Like, it's fine that you didn't make it, because it's still a book that's still healing, that's still reaching people, so you're gonna be okay with that. But I had little tears tracking down my little brown face. And I was like, but it's okay, I'm okay with it. And so then I was like, wait a minute. And Emily Henry, who is also a very good friend of mine, she had released her paperback of Happy Place the week before. And I was like, now you know that's gonna be on there. And it wasn't. And I was like, oh wait, this is the wrong week. You know, I had like cried myself, like, and be like, okay, you're okay. And Sam, I was like, it's okay. And Sam, my husband's like, babe, it's okay. And then I'm like, it's not even, he's like, did you just put me through that? And it's not even out yet. And so I was like, okay, whatever. I'm just like, I'm whatever now. I'm just gonna go be with Tia. And then I get an email from Emily Henry, because we're friends, and she sends me an email. She's like, Kennedy, I can't find your cell number. Oh my God, you just made the New York Times. And I was like, what? And she's got exclamation mark, exclamation mark, exclamation mark. And she's like, it's about damn time, you know? And so then I'm like, Emily. And so I text her. We're just texting, you know, and we're just both so happy. And then my phone starts blowing up for my editor and, you know, publicists and all that. But the most special thing about it was then I went to the event, and it was me and Tia. And she was the last person to do it, and I was the next person to do it. And it just felt like this is how it was supposed to happen.
All is right with the world.
Yes,
all is
for
right
us
with
to
the
be
world.
there together. Yeah.
Well, I have one final question that reveals that people are hungry. Because this is another question about food. My question is, if you could have dinner with any of your characters. Oh, this one, did I read this already? Yeah. Well, wonderful. Let's give them a round of applause. Take a selfie with everybody.
Yes, we definitely do. Jewel, can we borrow that camera?
And I have my
Okay, but I have a question that we didn't in the preamble. we had a question about Amber.
Okay.
So, you know, there's lots of different women in this, but Amber was an interesting one because, you know, she was absolutely the other woman.
Yes.
But she also was messing around with her cousin.
Yeah. Yes.
So, well,
she's just trash too.
she was just trash. When you were writing Amber, was Amber there for the money? Did she love Edward? Was she a victim of Edward's game? Like, what were your thoughts on this other sort of woman?
I think that the way I saw it was that their relationship started as something that was different than it evolved in, and it was more open. And then as it went on, it became something that was more exclusive. And I think that was really just showing the vulnerability of a married man having a relationship with someone else, and then her having a relationship with someone else, and then him taking, it's kind of spoilery, but taking that back to his wife. And so it was really the vulnerability of the recklessness of someone engaging with someone like that. And then, I don't want to give too many spoilers, but then some other things happen between them that solidify their relationship into a relationship. So yeah.
One last woman that I just want to shout out, Dolores.
Yes, I love Dolores.
Cowpot, Dolores,
Yes,
y'all. She was just
yes.
interesting,
Yes.
small little character in there,
Yes.
but like, I loved her empathy.
Yes.
They didn't have to have empathy, but I
Yes.
love that she was willing to be out on a limb for that.
And she was unexpected empathy. And I like that. I like it when you judge a book by its cover.
Yeah.
You know, and then when you really get to know even a side character, you're like, oh, she's different than I thought she was.
Yeah,
and that was
she's the main
Dolores.
character.
Yes.
All right, y'all, let's see if we can do this.
Okay, everybody.
Okay, wait. Wait, our heads look really weird.
Okay. Should we stand up?
Maybe, where's Jewel? Where did you go, Jewel?
Oh wait, I'm gonna.
I can't see where she is. I might get, yeah, maybe let's see what happens if we
I'm
stand
gonna
up.
do-
It's a bit better.
Okay, wait.
Okay, y'all, we had it as back as far
Oh, there we
as
go.
it
There we
goes.
go.
Okay.
Okay. Oh, are you in it?
I'm trying.
Okay, there we go. Okay, stand up a little
Okay.
bit. There we go. Okay, there we go. Okay, on the count of 3, everybody stand up and wave.
Okay, it's gonna be a good video.
Okay. Oh, yours is better.
Is it?
Yes.
Okay, this is gonna be a photo then a video. I love that you guys, I just want you guys to know the reason this woman is on the New York Times bestseller is because you are a magnificent marketer, but also because of you guys and your books and your tags.
Yes.
So like it makes a big difference when you tag these, hold up those books and talk about your books. So we love this.
Yes.
Okay, we're just gonna try a couple snaps and this will be our fun video. Hold on.
Okay, on the count of 3.
1, 2, 3.
Woo!